Hi, how you doing? Good morning. So a couple of things to think about right away is for qualifying this thing. Um, in a lot of ways, it starts out as a controller and a really great controller. If somebody wants a small 3-octave controller, it is clearly one of the nicest controllers synthesized. The aftertouch works really well. The velocity response is very useful. There are a lot of controllers. Everything can be assigned via auto map to the software that you're using, and it's very neat to be able to see the different titles for each of the knobs. But what I'm going to talk about primarily is it as a synthesizer. You should understand that it's definitely a single timbre synthesizer. So it's not going to do multi-channels. It's not going to do piano and strings and things like that. It is primarily a true synthesizer. It's an excellent synthesizer. And there are just a lot of fun little things in it, and I'll get through them as fast as I can. The editor is really neat, and that's how I'm going to show you these things. You have 3 oscillators. It goes into a mixer. You have lots of choices of waveforms, and that's probably the most exciting part about this is the synth is all the choices you have. So you have all your standard waves, but then you have all your digital waves. Then you have these very cool wave tables, and it's very easy to sequence through the wave table via LFOs, envelopes, things like that. And you can also use audio left in, audio right in. This whole thing is an audio interface as well as a MIDI interface. So there's lots of choices for the oscillators. In the mixer section, very cool. You can mix the 3 oscillators. You also get ring modulation that's always on. Ring modulation oscillator 1 against 3 and 2 against 3. And so you don't have to set up, you don't have to go to a mode to do ring modulation. It's always there. You have noise as a source at all times. The next section, it's very cool. The filter section, you get 2 filters. Each of them has a really long list of low pass, band pass, high pass with different number of poles on the bottom and the top of the high pass. The resonance is really good. This is very cool. There's different routing configurations. So you can choose, you can have some of the oscillators going to one filter, some of the oscillators and noise going to the opposite filter, and then it's very easy to sweep in real time via controllers or via LFOs or envelopes or anything. So some very magical things can happen that way. Then in your modulation, you have 20 of these modulation routings. So you can pick 2 sources and a destination and a depth. And when you do that, then you get these things coming up to your LFOs. And the LFOs are very exciting in that you have all your standard geometric waveforms, sine, triangle, square, sawtooth, all that. But you also have these cool little sequencer ones, and you have tuned ones that play musical intervals. You have alternating ones, very sharp LFOs, and they do all the choices you want about how they sync to clock, tons and tons of divisions. So if you do sync to clock, you have lots and lots of choices on how they all sync. So this box is very groovy in terms of everything locking to clock, including the effects. The envelopes are really exciting in that you can repeat them. So you can say, do that envelope shape anywhere from 1 time to, I think it's several hundred times, or infinite. So your LFO, or your envelopes actually become 6 more LFOs if you want them. Again, lots of motion, lots of interesting things to do. And then the effects section, again, more routing options where you can choose where the output of some of the earlier effects, how they feed some of the later effects. Very useful for things like distortion and stuff. Lots of the effects parameters can be controlled, again, from LFOs, from envelopes, from controller things. The controller stuff is very exciting in that there are 8 knobs on the top, and these knobs are made of a conductive plastic or conductive rubber that you, if you touch the knob, you're actually doing a control thing. So,
Can we get a shot of the keyboard?
question, sorry? Oh, no. Just very cool in a real-time sense. And then they have these 2 things that let you hit tweak, and all of a sudden you can have 8 of your favorite knobs up at all times. You can also do this thing called touch, and if you look, as you just touch the knob itself, it responds and it will do yet another modulation source. And it can also re-trigger envelopes. So in a DJ sense, especially if you're using audio in as your feed to be your oscillators, you can do some really cool things, and the people in the audience see that you're doing it, you know? And so it's a lot of fun that way. So here are just some, here are some of their patches just to show you. It's a very smooth synth. It's very easy to make elegant sounds. It's not a rompler, so you know it doesn't have choir and strings and all that stuff. It's a true synthesizer, but the sounds that it makes are very, very musical. And it can get very raucous because there's a feedback loops throughout the whole thing that lets you really get in, get dirty. But you can definitely hear the rhythmic elements to all these patches. And of course it has the standard vocoder. Nice and fat. It's got a chord feature. You just hold down a chord and lock it in, and then you can play that chord. And it's very analog sounding in that you can take two oscillators, slightly detune them, and hear that slight phasing that you hear with two oscillators out of pitch. It does it really well. It's tight. So here's one that I made, trying to use every possible modulation source. And if you touch the knobs, I got noise. Now, all 8 knobs work simultaneously. Then just for fun, I thought I'd see if I could do some B3s on this thing. And surprisingly, there was enough power, even though it doesn't have B3 waveforms, I was actually able to get some pretty nice ones. And I was able to build a Leslie, and it doesn't have a Leslie effect, but there were just enough parameters. And so here's an example of the, if you do the tweak, the ability to all of a sudden bring in ring modulation lets me get all kind of different organ patches. So I'll just run through a bunch of, so I just did a lot of different drawbar settings. It even let me do percussion. Add 2 different types. And then here's one I've never made before, a Joe Walsh. I finally had the power to, this is like the first time I've done this patch. You'll all recognize this. So I was pretty excited about that one. And then, of course, you know, the age-old question, can it do bagpipes? Yes, it can. And even though you can't split this keyboard, the modulation is so powerful, I was able to use key tracking to force 2 different sounds across this 3-octave keyboard. So here's your bagpipes. So the answer is yes, it does do bagpipes. But there's just a lot of neat things where you could, even though it's 3 oscillators into one, into a mixer, and then you do your filtering, there's a lot of flexibility with the modulation section, so I could build a beach and have the birds too, you know. And then, of course, you know, since I'm making this, doing this, I have to do my Who stuff. And the arpeggiator is a lot of fun to play with. And some classic rock. And then tried some emulative stuff, got a nice little jazz guitar. And then, of course, everybody wants to know, does it do the Pac-Man theme? Yes, it does. Hey.